Welcome to the February 25th, 2021 meeting, the Murfreesboro City Council. Councilmember Ronnie Martin has our prayer and our pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow your head. Heavenly Father, we are very thankful for this opportunity to be together and to serve one another, to serve the citizens of Murfreesboro. I want to say a very special thank you and for watching over all those that helped our city and all that are in our city go through the weather conditions, extreme conditions we had last week. I know that everyone worked really, really hard and made an extraordinary effort to get our city, keep our city safe, keep residents of our city safe, and I want to thank you for watching over them. Please be with us as we go through this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do want to make a quick comment. This past week, Roger Haley passed away, and Roger was our city manager from 1989 to 2009. Many of us that are here in the council chambers worked with Roger for many years, and so Roger did a lot for this city. One thing I can say about Roger is when he had his mind set in a direction, he was going that direction one way or another. And so I think a lot of the things that you see that are in our city are a direct reflection of Roger's tireless efforts. So on behalf of the council, on behalf of our city staff, we want to let the Haley family know that they are in our thoughts and prayers, and want to say thank you to Roger for the dedication he gave to the city of Murfreesboro for almost 40 years between being a council member and also city manager. So thank you, Roger. We have one ceremonial item, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go to the podium, and I want to ask Councilman Wright to come with us as well. So as many of you know, this past week was one of the larger ice and snowstorms that we've had in Murfreesboro in the last many years. And Councilmember Wright sent me an email about one of our hometown heroes who was not working but took his time to still work and to drive people from the hospital and different emergency service providers back and forth to work every single day, picked them up, took them home, picked them up the next day, and took them to work. So I want to ask Jason Ayers Jason, if you'll come up. Jason is a veteran, but also Jason, come on over here, Jason, if you don't mind. Jason also has a company here in town. We've got our masks on, so we're good, right? All right. So I want to offer this proclamation, and then Councilmember Wright will give this to Jason. It says, whereas Jason Ayers owns Veterans Pressure Washing, he and his team have been helping citizens in the Middle Tennessee area during the 2021 winter storm event. And whereas Jason has been instrumental in taking the time to get people such as essential workers and anyone who calls on him in need of transportation. And whereas he is one of the members of the 4x4 Facebook group that helps others during inclement weather. The group uses this time during the winter to give back to those in need, making themselves available by taking citizens to and from the workplace. If there's someone stuck in a ditch or a driveway, they will help them out with no charge. And whereas Jason has shown his commitment to the mission of helping others in selfless acts of kindness during the eventful winter week in Tennessee. Now, therefore, I, Shane McFarland, Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim this date, February 25th, 2021, as a day to recognize Jason Ayers for his dedication to the citizens of the community, and ask all citizens to join in recognizing him. Jason. Jason, do you have any of your team here that you want to recognize?
Some of them could not make it due to other extenuating circumstances, but I want to just say it wasn't just me. I was part of the 4x4 group, and then I just pushed the business right into it. And whoever was available at the time, you know, they got in the truck and started driving. Kevin Sanders is one of them. He can drive some members back and forth. Brandon Santander, he supported the business while I was out in town playing around in the snow. I do want to say this, huge shout out to the city salt trucks and teams. All the hours I was on the road, they were right there with me the whole entire time. And because there was two different waves, there was the ice wave and then the snow wave. Sure. And the roads were bad, then they got cleared, then bad, then clear. So my praises are out to them. So,
All right, thank you so much.
thank you very much.
Thank you. We can't bring the over 60 employees of the street department, of our Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department up to say thank you for, it's hard to believe that the weather we had today at 62 degrees, that a week ago that we were, you know, had 2 inches of ice and snow on the ground. But on Sunday night, I think that's right, Darren, we had a significant water and sewer event. Our team was out working until almost 11 o'clock at night in 20-degree weather, making sure that they got that taken care of. And then with the help of City Manager Tyndall and Raymond Hillis, who, by the way, City Manager Tyndall, I was joking to say that when one city manager who was from up north was like, no, we never shut the city down. Now we have a city manager from Arizona, and he's like, woo, this weather's bad. So Craig was, you know, the county government and the city government had to shut down, and I was joking with Craig saying that he couldn't win the Employee of the Year award for people not being able to come in. But all joking aside, we had over 60 people who were working 2 12-hour shifts, and I cannot tell you how many people that would either call me or that I would see that would say, compared to other cities around our area, that when they got into the city limits of Murfreesboro, they could not believe the difference on how our roads were compared to other municipalities. So I want to say thank you to the men and women who were working, working out in the field, that were working 12-hour shifts in the cold and keeping our roads safe. So we can't give a STARS award to 60 some odd people, plus our water and sewer department, our police department, our fire department, our emergency service and ambulance department. But I can't tell you how much, as a council, it makes us proud to know that while things were really tough, services in Murfreesboro were still going on. So thank you very much for your hard work. All right, we'll move into our consent agenda. You have 6 items on the agenda. Anything that needs to be added or pulled off the agenda?
If not, Mayor, so move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. As I hear Madeline's welcome voice, has reminded me to say that we are operating under the governor's executive order that will allow any municipality or county government to operate remotely. So, Madeline, it's good to have you with us. All right, we'll move into the minutes. You have the city council minutes from May 7th, 2020. Any additions or deletions to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Councilman Shacklet, Councilman Martin. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Scales Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move into old business. We have ordinance 20-028, amending the siding ordinance, and this is on second and final reading. We have our Building and Codes Director, Mr. Holtz, who's going to give a preface for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight before you on second reading is an amendment to our sign ordinance. I would like to take a brief minute to refresh your memory on what's in it. Item number 1 is external customer transaction portals, which basically allows video machines at ATMs and gas pumps. Also allows drive-throughs at fast food restaurants to have electronic message center signs, a certain number, decreasing the time a confiscated temporary sign can be claimed, and raising the fees for claiming those signs, prohibiting certain materials for use in signage, reducing the maximum allowable size of temporary signs, and allowing murals on more than 2 sides of a building. So on first reading, all those items were approved. And that first reading was September 24th. On October 1st and 22nd, it was deferred on second reading. And the point that we have been discussing and trying to work out a solution to is the time to buy back confiscated signs that we pick up in the right of way. We're asking that we just delete that from this amendment and that we maintain what's in the sign ordinance presently, which is 10 days to buy signs back. And the price for buying those signs back will remain the same. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Holtz?
I'm gonna make one quick comment, just to throw this out there. It doesn't require, I don't think, any action tonight by any means as far as making any commitments. But, you know, as I was thinking through this earlier in the week and read this on the agenda, there was something that sort of occurred to me as we go into this, you know, and I was part of the voice that said, hey, I'm a little bit worried about what we're talking about doing as far as taking the 10-day period away altogether. I have learned a lot since then, you know, first of all, how the GIS mapping works and that everybody's got the capability of looking right at the right away, right where they stand right that moment. And so there's really not a whole lot of excuse in my mind for people to put signs in the right of way, which creates safety issues and liability issues and all those kinds of things. However, I'm going to support what he's suggesting tonight, but what I might suggest is that we take the remainder of this year or the remainder of this fiscal year and let's see how many of these things get bought back. You know, I mean, if only 3 or 4 or 5 or 6% of the signs are getting bought back, us having to handle every one of those signs twice, maybe just seems like that might be more work on our staff than really, you know, and safety issues for the staff, getting out in traffic and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's multiple times I go down the street and I see something that I think I could use on the farm or at home or something. And of course, I'm not going to stop, you know, because of the traffic and, you know, so I would just ask that if everybody, you know, if we maybe watch that the rest of the year, that if we see that nobody's really coming to buy those back, or it's just such a few number, that maybe if they would keep track of that for us the rest of the year, then we maybe take a look at it in January or something like that. But
We can, and our plan was, I didn't say this, our plan is to bring back a amendment to this sometime in the future, once we can come up with something we think works better for everybody.
okay, well, if
We're good.
anybody got any, if not, I'll move for approval with the deletion.
This would be an amendment to the ordinance that we'll vote on first, and then we'd vote on it as amended.
All right, I'll make a motion to amend the ordinance to delete the change to the waiting period and to go with the current sign ordinance.
and the fees.
Ordinance 10 days.
25.2-4 that he
Thank you.
referenced in the letter.
All right, this is a motion for the amendment, and then we will take in the next motion ordinance 20028. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Aye. Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye, we'll now consider ordinance 20028, amending the sign ordinance, and this is second and final reading.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Aye. Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All right, we'll move to new business. We have Resolution 21R07, the Community Investment Study Group.
Council, recall at workshop, we talked about handling the proceeds from the MED sale to Middle Tennessee, and one of the suggestions that came up was to create a committee, a study committee, a community investment study group is what we've called it here in the resolution. And so this is a resolution that puts that into effect, and we've asked council to make suggestions on names. I don't think we have to have them necessarily tonight. I've gotten a few, and I'll collect those, continue to collect those and give them to the mayor, and then we can come back and appoint the the committee to work on how best to handle those proceeds. So if you have any questions about the resolution, I know Mr. Tucker's here, and or I'd be happy to answer.
My question, do we, after we vote on this tonight, could we go ahead and vote on the council representative?
Sure, you can appoint them at any time.
Okay. All right, any motions on this?
I move we approve the resolution.
Okay,
Second?
motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye, I guess we can wait till we appoint all the
Can I
members
make,
before.
can I make the
But
motion?
you can, yeah.
Foregone conclusion.
I'd like to make the motion that Councilmember Rick LaLance.
Why don't you let him make the motion?
You're out of order.
No.
You're out of order, Mr. LaLance. We have a motion
Yes, sir.
for Rick LaLance to
Rick
serve
LaLance
on,
to serve on that
um,
commission.
do we have a
Board.
second?
Second.
Ms. Wright, we actually won't vote on this. Can I ask for a vote of
Acclamation.
acclamation? So all-
Can't do that.
we can't do that?
Because we're doing with electronic meetings, that has to be a roll call vote.
Okay.
Sorry.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
Please call the roll, Ms. Wright.
I'll close my eyes and ears.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Aye. Mr. LaLance.
Abstain.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. All joking aside, I can't think of anyone else that's more qualified on the council to be able to talk about trusts and all the things. So we joke about it, but
Amen.
we put our trust in you.
Very lucky to have you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we'll move to Planning Commission recommendations to schedule public hearings. What do you have for us, Mr. Blomley?
Mayor McFarland, I have one public hearing to schedule tonight, and we are recommending a public hearing date of March 25th.
Just an FYI, I don't think it really will matter, because I'll walk through that, but there's a real good chance I won't be here that night, but I think it'll be all right. Yeah, I know.
What's the public hearing?
Public hearing is for a PRD at the corner of Bilbro and State for a townhouse development.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Aye. Mr. LaLance.
Abstain.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley. All right, we now will move to, on motion, we have Blue Links Contract for Management and Administrative Services. This is Community Development.
Hi, good evening. Helen Glenn with Community Development. We have a contract before you for services with Blue Link Solutions. They're going to assist us with they were selected by committee to assist us with our con plan coming up, and some services for IDIS training and some of our monitoring and contract compliance for HUD. So we want to complete that this year, actually quite soon.
All right, anyone have a question for Ms. Glenn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris. Aye. Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Glenn, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to Old Fire Station 4 ADA restroom construction contract.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. I'm Kayla Walker with Project Development. I am here representing staff to ask for approval of the construction contract between Boyce Ballard and the City of Murfreesboro in the amount of $115,950 for the Old Fire Station 4 off Jones Boulevard ADA restroom renovation project. The old Fire Station 4 currently houses fire rescue for community risk reduction, logistics, and supply. The scope includes the conversion of the existing locker room space into 2 ADA-compliant restrooms, as well as exterior sidewalk improvements for ADA-compliant building access. Pending approval of this contract, construction will commence in 4 to 6 weeks, depending on material lead times. That's currently what we're tracking at. Any questions?
Any questions?
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you. All right, we'll move to recruitment for the city recorder and the city treasurer. Ms. Russell.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This evening, staff is requesting approval to hire a recruiting consultant for the city recorder and city treasurer position. As you know, the city recorder and city treasurer positions are held by Ms. Wright, who has announced her intention to retire April 30th, 2021. The city recorder and city treasurer positions are appointed by council. The charter allows these positions to be held jointly by one person, which has been the case for the past several years. Staff recommends these roles continue to be held jointly. At council's request, staff has contacted 3 reputable recruitment agencies who work in the municipality space. Those agencies are Strategic Government Resource, or SGR, Baker Tilly, and Bainzinger and Associates. Proposals were sent to council earlier for review. Staff has partnered with SGR in the past for recruiting the city manager and the HR director roles. However, all agencies are competitively priced, and the recruitment time frame from start to hire is about 3 months for all of those. It may be a little less time with SRG because they've worked with the city in the past, and so they've got some of our basic information on the city and community. The recruitment cost is estimated to be about $30,000. That includes any travel if it's necessary for finalist candidates. Staff is asking council for approval and selection of an agency so that we can begin the recruiting process. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Council members?
Who did you say we had worked with before?
SGR.
Okay. I move we accept the bid from the company we worked with before.
SGR?
If you're somebody wants a second, I was actually going to say I didn't really, it wasn't really a question for Pam. I thought we were going to get into discussion, but just kind of briefly, I wasn't all that thrilled with the process the last time necessarily. Just reading through some of these things, the thing that I didn't like about their proposal, just for what it's worth, was the all of the a la carte stuff. It was like here's your price, but then every little thing they ever do was another $800, $1,200, $400, $200, and I really, that to me got us into some situation where I was afraid we were going to be sitting here and we were about $50,000 in by the time everything was said and done. They've got that maximum price of $24,900 or whatever.
Right.
But
And I think in the past, the $24,900, those were the only services that we did ask for them for. Of course, we might want some of the others, but we did go with the straight package the last 2 times. So it stayed in that space.
Is there a way that we did that contract that would be, if we went with SGR, that would just be a not to exceed $30,000? I mean, that we just
Absolutely.
said, look, this is all that we're willing to pay, and
Yes, we can.
okay.
I'm not opposed to it. I just kind of saying I didn't.
Let's do this real quick because we got a motion on the floor. Is there a
Okay.
second?
Yeah,
And we
sorry.
can get
It's-
into discussion. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
There's more discussion. I'll withdraw the motion, but if there's more discussion required, I thought we were to the point.
Why don't I'll accept
I'll withdraw.
withdrawing the motion, and let's see if there's any more discussion. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
No, I mean, from proposals only and just from my small experience that I had, and I kind of mentioned this in a meeting a time or two ago, and it was, or I guess when we were talking out at the airport, just kind of about, our top 10 candidates that came back, half of them were from cities under 13,000 people or something like that, and it didn't seem to me that process of getting out there and finding what I thought we were really looking for was handled very well, frankly. I mean, I just didn't feel like they brought the candidates. And it may be there very well could be other factors, and I'm sure there are. But that was sort of the taste it left with me, I guess I would say. And then I just sort of didn't like the way they had all those a la carte things mixed in there. So I was, for what it's worth, I don't have a big, I'm not super convicted about any of this. That was my 2 cents worth, and I was sort of leaning towards, from proposals, the Baker Tilly folks. It looked like they had, it was a little more straightforward. They had a little bit more emphasis on some stuff that I thought was important, and that I guess there was a small part of me that thought going to a different agency than someone we've always or already worked with might be a good experience, if nothing else, getting, kind of expanding our network a little bit. But that's it. I'm not trying to argue it. That's my.
Mr. LaLance, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, Ms. Scales Harris, go ahead.
Mr. LaLance, I agree with you. I was not impressed at all with the group last time, and I was not impressed with the candidates they brought to us. I totally agree.
Yeah, and I hope that I'm not remembering the wrong one, but I think that was the correct people that I was thinking of for the right search. You know what I'm saying? We've had a couple, but I think that's the ones that I remember. But
Just comment, and I read through that, I think, and I didn't see this in there, but is there any language, and I guess we could do whatever we want to do from the standpoint of, what we're interested in, but if we do not select one of the slate of candidates, are we still obligated for the consulting fee that we pay, or is there some breakdown where if you don't select that candidate,
I think
We can do it a la carte and break down each phase so that if we say we want to stop the search, for example, you see that the internal candidate's the best selection and you want to discontinue to see what the cost, and then cut the cost off.
But I don't think there's any getting out of it after they've done the work for 15 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, not after all the work has been done.
Generally, what they'll do, though, is they will allow for a second recruitment.
Right.
Without, additional costs. And that's kind of the standard provision that they have to protect cities that might not have a good recruitment.
Just for my own ignorance, since this is my first time, if we have a in-house candidate, do they apply through the recruitment company, or will the headhunters look for the internal person also?
Yeah, they'll apply through the recruiting company.
Okay.
So they'll be a part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Are we defining the, go ahead, Madeline.
Ms. Scales Harris.
I would like to, in the future, because there's so much that people go through, anxiety, so much that they go to prepare for these interviews. In the future, corporations are beginning to do this, by the way. I would like to see, if we have someone in mind that we think that will do a great job in that position, I would like us to add a sentence on the application that a candidate is being highly considered. You see that now in corporate America. They are actually put that sentence there to let the people know you can still apply, but we have candidates we are very impressed, but go ahead and apply because you may be better. I just want to see us do that in the future.
I didn't get all that.
Madeline, can you?
In other words, if we have someone for a position that we feel high about, and we think that they will be the best person for the position, if we would just put one sentence on the application, a candidate being highly considered.
I missed the word again. Highly what?
Highly considered. An internal candidate is being highly considered in the recruiting.
You're beginning to see that now. I know I work for a company, State Farm, and they did that. And I think that's fair. People are going to have to apply.
Okay. Okay. So I think Councilman Martin was just, so Madeline, are you saying that when we send the application to to the consultant that we would put on there that there are internal candidates that we are considering or highly considering in the, is that what you're saying, that in the application that we send to the contract we send to the search firm?
I think that what she's saying, she wants it to be on the advertisement when we advertise for the job, for the posting, that those candidates know that there's a internal candidate being highly considered. And I'm guessing that's to say they're really interested or they're a really great candidate. I'm not sure. I don't know that I've seen that before. I've seen where we would say we prefer a local candidate.
So Madeline, are you saying you want that on the application or you want that on the job posting?
Well, on the job post.
Okay. I would think if we put that on the job posting that we would limit the amount of people that we're going to get to apply because they're already going to think it's a done deal that somebody internally is going to get. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you, Ms. Russell. If
That would be my guess, is that you would get less candidates because it would look as though we already had the candidate in mind.
What would be the benefit, Ms. Scales Harris? What would you say is the benefit of that? I mean, I would say more candidates would be a benefit just because you got more people to choose from. But generally, what do you feel the benefit of putting that on the application would be?
I think the benefit
On the posting.
I think the benefit would be just like we've seen in the past when we hire people, opening up, and everybody knows that Rick Spence is going to get the job. But, it goes through all this rigmarole, and guess who gets the job? Rick LaLand. So I'm just saying.
Picking on me tonight for.
But it's just saying.
Okay, yeah.
What I said, hey, forget what I said. But in the future, let's do that. Because when we already know who's going to get the job, that's going to take people through all that.
I'm not sure I'm hearing every word, but if we're talking about putting it on the posting, I guess if we're going to, I'd probably, I guess, just respectfully disagree with that a little bit and just kind of say, well, maybe, and maybe I just need to learn more about it or something, but I just don't think I'd do it this time, and maybe I'll learn more about it and see where that might be a benefit next time.
The problem with doing, I will tell you one of the problems with doing that is anybody who applies for a higher level public position has to weigh putting in their application and the effect that might have with their present employment. And so if you put something like that in there, the risk then becomes much less likely they're going to get a position, and they may just choose not to put in for that. And it's different in the corporate world. I understand what Councilmember Scales Harris is saying, and there's some benefit to do that, I think, for the candidates' purposes. And in the corporate world, it's a little bit different because you're not publicly exposed to your application for another position like you would be in a public position. So, I mean, my recommendation is to not put that on there and let people do their risk assessment, because I don't believe, while we have an internal candidate that is available to us, that there's a decision that's been made to the extent that we would discourage applications.
I guess.
No problem.
Well, and part of this for me, Madeline, is I know we've had some communication as far as understanding that there is an internal candidate, but frankly, I haven't looked at any of the credentials of that person versus, and certainly not the credentials of that person versus other people. I mean, so it would be a little bit, I feel like it might just be premature for me to say, hey, I want to cut people out of the mix when I don't even know what the credentials are of the person that is being highly considered. I certainly can't say they're being highly considered by me. I don't even know who it is. I mean, I don't know the credentials, the background. So it just doesn't feel fair to me for that. But
I think one of the reasons we're doing the search is to make it an objective. You have risen to the top of a fair evaluation of the search. That was one of my questions. Are we defining? I didn't see how we defined the level of search. Are we doing this nationwide or?
So it's up to us to decide. Typically, they do it nationwide. They all play in that same space, so they typically do it nationwide. They have a set of customer base. They have, already have out there, so people that are looking for jobs, they automatically go to those sites, and those jobs are sent out to them directly. And so any candidate that's interested and they're in the finance sector, those applications will go to them.
And the term of the length of time that we're going to go through this process, I know we're in some time crunch to some degree because we'd like to have some lap time. So what is the?
So right now, most of them are in that 3-month space. We can shorten that. It just depends on how long we want to put the advertisement out there, how quickly it takes for us to give them our marketing materials. That's why I was saying SGR, they already have kind of that information from us. And so we can shorten some of those time frames. We can cut out some of the areas if you'd like to. So we can set that up to say it's a smaller time frame. We just limit the amount of work that's going to be done in between.
Maybe one thing too, and like Sean, this is the first time I think I've been involved in this process, but obviously the folks that we would hire are accustomed to working through some of these issues. Maybe there's a point in that process, not on the job posting, but where they would make it clear that whether it be to us or to the pool, that there is an internal candidate, and that may accomplish what Madeline's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you're right. They generally do have those kind of conversations with candidates. If there's a strong internal candidate, they'll let them know.
I think we could emphasize that to whoever we hire and probably accomplish what maybe Madeline's trying to accomplish, rather than be on the application to discourage people from applying, which it might.
Yeah,
I agree it might.
I think they did.
I agree, guys. I totally agree with that. No problem.
So I don't get the job? I'll make a motion to approve it. I'm not stuck on this thing.
The only thought that I had was speeding up the process a little bit, but if we feel like it's the difference between, a couple of weeks, then maybe we shouldn't be that concerned with it. And I don't have a problem with having another experience with another search firm. I didn't feel the same way. We just disagree that they did all right. I understand what you're saying because I remember what they gave us back too, and it didn't seem like they met what our expectations were. Right. But this is kind of a different position that we're looking at, and I think the candidates are going to have a little different kind of search that's going to happen. But I'd be fine if you want, if you feel comfortable. When we look at the next time we have this opportunity, thing I would recommend is congeal the proposals down to something a little more discernible.
List 75 pages.
80 to 100. It was so much information.
I know, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of marketing
and somebody
material.
that doesn't have the experience of looking at the evaluators, I mean, we're going to use things arbitrary like what their experience was, if it was a good experience or if it was a bad experience. And that may preclude us. I'd rather somebody that looks on us on a daily basis to congeal that into some kind of evaluation of each of the proposals so we can kind of make a better decision. I think that would be helpful. So.
Sure can.
And if it makes you feel any better, some of us would complain if we didn't have all the information, so there you go.
Well, some of us would hire Rick anyway.
But I will say that since they all play in that same space, the candidates that you get, because they are all across the U.S., they're probably about the same candidates. It's going to depend on what the market is and what the job is, So.
Mr. Wright, you want to change your mind?
That's the other option.
Yeah, I was going to say, fix this,
we can put this to bed.
I did pick the date arbitrarily, thinking the person might be in place to work through the budget with council, to be through that process for the first time. My date's arbitrary, so if it comes about, I need to be here longer. I have no plans. I was just trying to put a person in place through the budget, do the year end, and start the new year. If that's not going to happen, I'm flexible.
Go ahead.
I'll just say this. The one company, was it Carlisle? the middle one, didn't have any experience in Tennessee, so I kind of wrote them off just because they hadn't worked in Tennessee before. And then the Beatty one seems like they've worked with more cities at our size or bigger. So that's kind of where I was going with it, just deductive reasoning. If all things are equal, you've had somebody that's kind of worked in the area and has worked with cities as big as ours or bigger. So that's kind of what I was deciding on.
Is that the form of the motion?
Sure.
That's Baker Tilly.
Baker Tilly.
All right.
You get,
Have a motion for hiring Baker Tilly.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye.
Thank
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you,
Ms. Russell.
Pam.
All right, we'll now move to item 14, the approval to purchase PC equipment for information technology. Mr. Lilly.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. 5 years ago, the IT department started a PC replacement plan to replace old and outdated computers. This has minimized productivity issues of our employees while maximizing cybersecurity. The IT department was previously approved the funds to purchase replacement PC equipment for fiscal year 21 by City Council. We now seek the authorization to purchase the computers through the NASPO Cooperative Purchasing Program as amended by the State of Tennessee Master Contract. Open for any questions.
If there aren't any, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Lilly.
Thank you.
All right, we now have school technology purchase, and this is for the city school system.
Good evening. Tonight we're requesting funding for the purchase of student computers. The city had purchased computers for us a little while back. We applied for a grant and received a grant called the Remote Learning Grant. So now we're asking for those funds to be used to purchase an additional computers, about 586 additional computers for the schools.
And I hate to ask this, but tell me your name.
My name is Beth Prater.
Thank you, Beth.
Sorry, I should have introduced her.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
She is new, so,
Awesome.
Move for approval.
second.
Motion is second. Ms. Wright, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Skels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Shacklet.
Aye.
Mr. Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Wright.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Prater.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Any licensing?
No, sir.
We have no board and commission appointments. Any statements?
No, sir.
Any other business from staff? I'm sorry, we'll go.
That's okay, go ahead. Anything else?
You want me to go?
Yep.
I want to address a council inquiry that we had concerning a position that we have in planning. We had a landscape inspector in position that came open, and what we've been able to receive 9 applications for that position, and we interviewed five individuals. The top candidate was former councilmember Eddie Smotherman, who brings to the city, obviously, a lot of experience, his love for the city, and experience with planning and in landscaping. And so he was a top candidate, and we've been fortunate enough to bring him on board, and he'll be working up in the planning department. So, and then as far as next month's meetings, we'll meet on the 4th. We have a workshop on the 10th, and we'll see if we have things on the 18th, because we've just set a public hearing on the 25th. So we'll meet on the 25th. We'll meet on the 18th only if we have items that need to be addressed.
So we will meet on March the 4th.
We'll have public comment at 5:30 that day as well, probably.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Speaking of that, I guess while we're talking about it, spring break is first week of April, I think, for the county. I don't know.
We just looked it up because we were concerned about that public hearing, but I think it was the 29th that it starts and
Starts
goes
after
into
the
April.
public hearing.
Right.
That weekend.
This would just be careful about scheduling the public comment meeting for the 1st of April, because that would be the first Thursday. We just want to keep that in mind, probably.
Yeah.
Can we have those dates one more time?
4th, and the 10th would be the Wednesday meeting, the afternoon or lunchtime meeting. And then the 25th for sure, perhaps the 18th, but the 25th for sure, because we set a public hearing on that date.
Will that 11:30 meeting on the 10th be at the airport?
Yes.
Okay.
The legislative meeting?
What's that?
The legislative meeting?
That was reset
March 11th.
today.
That was on the 11th.
On Thursday, the 11th?
At 4:30 to.
4 o'clock.
Right.
4
So we-
o'clock to 5:30,
At the
5:45
police
or something like
department.
that, yeah.
Yeah, to bring our legislative contingents out. That's right. I think that was set
It'll be 10
today.
and 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she sent it out today.
Send
We
it out
may want to
today.
look
We
at,
rescheduled that.
not to change the locations, but we may want to look at having that at the airport on the 11th, just because the room's bigger and you can social distance a little easier than what you can at the police headquarters, but just something to think about. Seems like that room works a lot better as far as it being big enough to get a larger U shape to get everyone to sit at, but just think about that. And I do like at that location having the ability to be able to have that televised if we do decide that we want to get information out to the public on that. So something to think about.
Yeah, we'll check on the availability of that.
Any questions for Mr. Tyndall? All right, any other business by staff? Councilman Shacklet.
Just a couple of announcements. The Murfreesboro City Schools is going to have a vaccination day tomorrow for its teachers and staff, and I just think we need to applaud the folks at City Schools for the effort they're doing to get their staff and their teachers vaccinated. It's a synchronous day, so people throughout the system will be coming over there, and it is with the help of our firemen will be helping give injections, and our police department will help with traffic control. But it's at Salem Elementary, and I just wanted to commend them for the effort they put into helping our teachers and our whole system be safe and to get their vaccinations. And the other comment that I wanted to make the other night was Mr. Ringstaff's last meeting of the board as our interim director of schools. And I just wanted to commend him for the work that he did to serve as our interim. Quite honestly, I can't imagine a job description that got any more complicated faster than what he did jumping into an interim position and to not only deal with the tragic loss of our director, Dr. Gilbert, but to have to deal with the pandemic. And you talk about being thrown into the fire, but he had a steady hand on the controls, and I think that gave the assurance and a lot of peace to a very unpeaceful kind of year that the city schools went through. So he needs to be commended, and if you get an opportunity in the community to see Mr. Ringstaff, I think he deserves a great thank you for the efforts that he put into it. Not just what he did, but the way he went about doing it. And then we'll look forward to our new director, Trey Duke, will take over that position. And I'm hoping to have him here to do our opening prayer at our next meeting. So,
I've got two quick items. They're really more just attaboys. This past week, I think it was Thursday, our EMA director, Chris Clark, reached out. He called, and I directed him to Chief Folks. But long story short, they were having a septic issue out at the Walter Hill, the Rutherford County Fire Department at the Walter Hill station. And so he and Chief Folks worked together. And so for the short time, their Walter Hill Fire Station is being co-located right now in Station 7 on Thompson Lane. They had a septic issue and have not been able to stay in their fire station. So I drove by yesterday and noticed a Rutherford County fire truck that was sitting out at Station 7. So it was a good just a good opportunity for everybody to work together. So, and then many of y'all have seen, I drove on Alexander Boulevard today, and our speed cushion pilot program that we voted on back in, I don't know, late last year. Those were installed yesterday and finished up today. And I would encourage everyone to go take a drive on Alexander. For years, I think that's a 1.5 mile stretch that we've gotten lots of complaints on speeding. It's a 30 mile an hour stretch. And anyway, those are installed now. I don't know how you could go 30 miles an hour on that road now, which is, I think, welcome to the homeowners. But please go check that out. And to the residents who've asked questions about that, we decided that we picked a road that we had gotten numerous complaints on over the last many years. That's how Alexander Boulevard was picked. It wasn't because any of us live on Alexander Boulevard. That's how the road was going to be picked. We're going to monitor that for the next 6 months to determine if there are other opportunities that we want to look at doing that inside the city. So nothing's been decided. I've just been telling people as the amount of comments that we've gotten, hey, look at this road, look at that road, that please email your council members, email me, and we'll keep a list as time goes along that we can look at where that program is going to go.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, which I found interesting too, just as we were going through that process of voting on it, that it wasn't just based on complaints that, I think it was Chris Griffith who had kind of said, there had certain amount of accidents or tickets or some things like that. So there were a few factors to that kind of led to that being one of the prime locations. So it's kind of the proverbial perfect storm or perfect place for it.
And that's what I think as a council, once this program's over, or the pilot program period is over, our team is going to look and evaluate, where we were in traffics or in traffic violations and citations and accidents in prior periods and where we are now. And then that's going to be for us to decide. I don't think we want to start the program that just because someone doesn't want people driving fast on their road that we're going to just throw these all over the place. But there are areas that we've gotten people who over the years and even over the last months, I went and met with a lady or professor at MTSU on Haynes Haven next to Northfield Elementary, the back entrance where there's a curve there where people drive too fast and they ended up in her kitchen. The car did. So Mr. Griffith was great and went over and looked at that, and that seems like that may be a prime example of where you would want some of those to occur. So we're just not willy-nilly going to put those wherever we think they may help. It's going to be data driven on how we do that. So our team did great. It got a bunch of comments from the people on Alexander on how well that our street department did on putting those out. So thank y'all for your hard work. Any other business? All right. I see Mr. Gore back there yawning. So I guess that means we are adjourned.